Coming up on today's Philadelphia Eagles Now, my name is Chase Sr., Kevin Patullo replacements, and a look at the top Eagles offensive coordinator targets after the Eagles fired Patullo as OC yesterday. Before we get into the top 10 candidates on today's show, a reminder, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join the movement. If you want to be a more informed Eagles fan, you want to be a part of a fantastic Eagles community right here on YouTube, lock us in and hit that subscribe button. And since that Eagles lost to the Niners, our coverage has absolutely taken off. The views have been going crazy. This offseason is your go-to spot for the best Eagles content right here on YouTube. News, rumors, and reports. NFL free agency coverage. We'll be at the Super Bowl. We'll be at the NFL Combine. We'll give you NFL draft content. Anytime there's trade buzz, we'll talk about that as well. And as you can see here to my right, 55 subscribers away from 143,000. So hit that sub button and join the movement right now. Kevin Patullo replacement number one, a familiar name inside the NFC East. That is Brian Daboll, the former Giants head coach. And I'm high on Daboll. I think that he would be a very good coordinator for the Eagles. He's an experienced play caller. Kevin Patullo was not. He oversaw top 10 offenses as Josh Allen's coordinator in Buffalo. And a lot of people forget that when Josh Allen was coming out of Wyoming, he was a raw player, and he was not an accurate quarterback, a sub-60% guy. Daboll really helped to streamline his development and helped to turn Allen into the player who we know now, a perennial MVP candidate. I also like Daboll's track record as a coach. He's coached under the likes of Bill Belichick with the New England Patriots, Nick Saban at Alabama, and there is some familiarity between Daboll and some players on this Eagles roster. He was Jalen Hurts' offensive coordinator at Alabama. Of note, that is the year when Hurts was benched in the national championship for Tua Tagovailoa. But Daboll also coached Devontae Smith at Alabama and Saquon Barkley with the New York Giants. Daboll has a history with Nick Sirianni, worked with him while with the Kansas City Chiefs back in the day, and he was the coach of the year in 2022. His tenure with the Giants got off to a good start. After that, it was kind of a disaster. As a head coach, being a coordinator, a little bit different, I thought he did some decent things in maximizing Daniel Jones in 2022. So I think that Daboll could be with the Eagles for more than a year. Jalen Hurts has had a different offensive coordinator in the last 10 years, 10 different seasons. Now it's going to be 11-11 if you go back to his time at Alabama. Daboll doesn't run an exotic offense like a Mike McDaniel, a Sean McVay, or a Kyle Shanahan. I think the Eagles might like that. You know, they've had an outside zone type of running game and a play action passing game. They don't really love or tap into the Kyle Shanahan type of scheme with all the pre-snap motion and all the intricacies there. A legitimate question with this Eagles OC search, should the Eagles look for offensive coordinator continuity, or should they look for the best candidate here? I think they should go after the best candidate, even if it means that OC is only with the Eagles for a year and we're right back at it looking for another OC a year from now. That helps you maximize your roster, and it gives you the best opportunity to compete for a Super Bowl. Kevin Patullo replacement number two, Mike McDaniel, the former head coach of the Miami Dolphins. He is a part of the Kyle Shanahan tree. Shanahan put a lot of trust in McDaniel throughout his coaching career. They were with one another with the Washington Redskins at the time, with the Cleveland Browns. McDaniel followed Shanahan there. Then he went with Shanahan when Shanahan was the OC with the Atlanta Falcons. And then when Shanahan took the head coaching job with the Niners in 2017, McDaniel rose up from run game coordinator to pass game coordinator to offensive coordinator. And he hadn't been a play caller prior to his job with the Dolphins as the head coach. And he put up some good numbers with that Dolphins offense. The Eagles actually interviewed McDaniel for their offensive coordinator job in 2020 under Doug Peterson. But McDaniel wasn't going to call plays because Doug Peterson continued to call plays. If McDaniel wants to be a head coach again, going to the Eagles can help him. They have been a factory of developing players and developing coordinators and coaches. He is a Kyle Shanahan disciple. In 2023, the Dolphins were the number 2 scoring offense in the NFL. the number one total offense in the NFL. I thought he did a good job of developing and maximizing Tua Tagovailoa, who I think is a very mid quarterback. McDaniel's offense, dynamic, has a good running game. I do have some concerns because his teams with the Dolphins were bad against stiff competition. They couldn't win in the cold Northeast climate in Philadelphia. Another concern that I have is that in these Shanahan offenses, they do rely on anticipatory throws over the middle with crossers, in breakers, and a lot of pre-snap motion. Jalen Hurts does tend to keep things, or prefer to keep things, a little bit more simple, so he might have to get outside of his comfort zone here. McDaniel would have full autonomy of the offense. This wouldn't be Nick Sirianni marrying his scheme with McDaniel's scheme, like Sirianni did with Kellen Moore. If McDaniel comes in here, he's going to be the head coach of the offense. And according to reports, the Eagles might try to do something a little bit different than what they've done under Sirianni in the past and let that OC do their thing. Todd Monken, former offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens, former offensive coordinator at the University of Georgia. We know that Howie Roseman has been infatuated with Georgia Bulldog players over time. The Eagles also interviewed Glenn Schumann, their defensive coordinator, a couple of years ago for their vacant DC job. So the Eagles are familiar with Todd Monken. Last 3 years, he was the OC under John Harbaugh with Baltimore. The Ravens, during that entire stretch, they were number 4 in EPA per play, number 1 specifically in 2024. Lamar Jackson, with Todd Monken as his OC, was a unanimous MVP, led the NFL in passer rating back in 2023. Monken was Georgia's OC specifically from 2020 through 2022. And how about this? We know that we've been missing the explosive plays, really since Shane Steichen was the OC for this team in the pass game. Last year, Eagles had a lot of explosives on the ground with Saquon Barkley, but the Ravens under Monken's watch generated the second most explosive plays under Todd Monken. And here's what's enticing for a lot of Eagles fans out there and perhaps for the Eagles organization. At 59 years old, could he be the offensive Vic Fangio? Meaning he's not going to leave for a head coaching job. He could be the long-term option at offensive coordinator. He's had some head coaching jobs over the last couple of cycles, but I don't expect him to get a head coaching job this cycle. He didn't get one last cycle, and he's got a ton of play calling experience at the college level, but also at the NFL level with Baltimore, with Tampa Bay, and with Cleveland. Of note, he is going to interview with the Buccaneers for their OC job. I think Monken can get the best out of Jalen Hurts. Lamar Jackson, dual threat quarterback. Jalen Hurts, a dual threat quarterback who I think needs to get back to running the football a little bit more. And then in the passing game, I like some of the concepts that we've seen from Monken, and that's backed up and evidenced by some of those explosive plays where sometimes guys are just running free. Didn't happen at all this year for the Eagles. Kevin Stefanski, candidate number 4 here for Philadelphia. Former head coach of the Cleveland Browns and a lot of Philadelphia area ties. Impressive resume. 2-time coach of the year while with the Browns. Philly area native. He played college football at Penn. Smart guy, Ivy League. Former Eagles intern as well. And his scheme, I think, is what the Eagles kind of prefer here if they want to keep things similar to Nick Sirianni's offensive system. It's a play-action passing game with zone running concepts. And I think the Eagles really like that. Stefanski does have a relationship with Nick Sirianni, so I think that they could work in a cohesive manner. A concern that I have, and some people have been beating the drum for Stefanski, saying he's a great offensive mind, he's a great offensive play caller. There were multiple times with Cleveland, and I know that the quarterback play was a little bit suspect, and he did win playoff games with Joe Flacco and with Baker Mayfield, but he did have to give up play calling duties as the head coach multiple times during his Browns tenure. Coming in at number 5, Kliff Kingsbury, former offensive coordinator for Washington. He was let go last week. And former head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, former head coach of the Texas Tech Red Raiders. He actually was the head coach when Patrick Mahomes was there in Lubbock. The Eagles interviewed Kingsbury before hiring Kellen Moore last year. So he was a candidate for the Eagles OC job a year ago this time. In 2024, the Commanders were top 5 in EPA per play, and Jaden Daniels had a terrific rookie year. Kind of surprised, actually, that Washington moved off of him so quickly. Jaden Daniels wanted him to stay around. He was floored by the firing. There's some internal friction up top in the front office for Washington with ownership. What's new? And Dan Snyder's not even there anymore. Hurts did play in this offensive scheme at Oklahoma under Lincoln Riley. A potential problem here could surface, though. Kingsbury's run game doesn't really mesh with Jeff Stoutland. Kingsbury is a Mike Leach, Lincoln Riley type of disciple. I'm not a huge fan of the four verts offense. I think it's very college-centric, and I don't love how it translates to the NFL level, and I would hate to lose a guy in Jeff Stoutland, who's the Eagles' run game coordinator and arguably the best offensive line coach in the NFL. With that, let's pop up today's poll question here. Hope you're all enjoying the show, all the real ones hanging out. Who do you want, the Eagles to hire as offensive coordinator to replace Kevin Patullo? Who is your top candidate? Drop me a name or names down below in the comment section and show me that you all know ball. I do want to tell you about this great deal thanks to our friends at Fanatics. This Eagles hoodie t-shirt was $60. Yo, it is on sale for $42. $18 off, but here's the catch. You have to use our link, chatsports.com/Eagles hoodie shirt. It's Nike. It's midnight green. You can wear this any season. It's very comfortable. I have one myself. So get yours today, chatsports.com/Eagles hoodie shirt. 5 more candidates to touch on here. Nathan Scheelhaase. He is the pass game coordinator under Sean McVay with the Los Angeles Rams. And I know I said a little bit earlier that the Eagles, I'd be surprised if they went and tapped into the Shanahan system. Scheelhaase is a part of that, but he's a protege under Sean McVay. And the Eagles have shown some interest, actually, in Scheelhaase in the past. The Eagles interviewed him all the way back in 2023 when he was a little-known Iowa State assistant. So after the Eagles had lost Shane Steichen when he took the head coaching job with the Colts, after the Eagles lost in the Super Bowl 57 in 2022, they internally promoted Brian Johnson, of course, and he was looked at as a very viable candidate at the time, but the Eagles did go external. They didn't do that with Kevin Patullo. They didn't interview anybody outside of the building other than Kevin Patullo. Turns out that was a mistake. So the Eagles have interviewed Scheelhaase before. He's the Rams pass game coordinator now. He was the Rams pass game specialist last year. And you talk to people in NFL circles. Scheelhaase is looked at as very young, innovative, and an up-and-coming wizard with getting in the lab and designing plays. A potential concern here, he has not called plays at the NFL level. But if you want a modern-day offense with a diverse route tree, a lot of pre-snap motion, and a very dynamic and explosive pass game, combined with a really good running attack, which Sean McVay has put more of a priority on of late, Scheelhaase is a really sexy name on the streets. Davis Webb, he's the quarterback's coach and pass game coordinator for the Denver Broncos. A lot of you might be familiar with him. He was a longtime backup quarterback at the NFL level, and he played with the New York Giants under Brian Daboll back in 2022 and got right into coaching. He's been on a fast track, and he's only 30 years old. He became the Broncos quarterback's coach in 2023, and the last 2 years done a pretty solid job of developing Bo Nix. That Broncos offense has been a little bit spotty. They've really been reliant on arguably the best defense in the NFL. I'd say top 5 because Houston and Seattle are certainly up there. What I like about Webb, who he's coached under, with Sean Payton the last 3 years, he played under Kliff Kingsbury. If the Eagles want a taste of that offensive system, I talked about him earlier in the week, in addition to a lot of these candidates a few days ago, even before the Eagles let go of Patullo. Jerrod Johnson checks in at number 8. He's the quarterback's coach with the Houston Texans, another guy who the Eagles have familiarity with in the interview process. He interviewed with the Eagles last year as well before the Eagles settled on Kellen Moore. He was way back in the day an Eagles training camp quarterback, and he has familiarity with Nick Sirianni. When Sirianni was with the Colts as their OC and wide receivers coach, Jerrod Johnson overlapped with Sirianni as a quality control coach. He's done some solid work with C.J. Stroud. With C.J. Stroud, he had a great rookie year. Last year, I thought he regressed. This year was weird. Then he missed some time with the concussion. I don't love C.J. Stroud's pocket presence, but he can make any throw on the field. Stroud has had to deal with changes at OC and a bad offensive line, but Jerrod Johnson comes very highly touted and recommended by a lot of people across the NFL. Josh McCown, former Eagles backup quarterback, back in 2019, he had to replace Carson Wentz when Wentz got knocked out in the wildcard round against Seattle. He is the current quarterback's coach for the Minnesota Vikings. If you like the Kevin O'Connell offense, Josh McCown has been able to learn under him. Now, I think KOC has gotten very obsessed with being way too pass happy, and he doesn't run the ball enough. So that would be something that I would ask McCown, that do you have an emphasis? Are you going to put an emphasis on having more of a balanced offense? Josh McCown, very well traveled throughout his NFL career. He played with 11 other teams outside of the Eagles. He was the quarterback's coach with Carolina. He may have overlapped with Frank Reich. And then with the Vikings, he also lacks play calling experience, but I do like Kevin O'Connell in general as one of the better offensive minds in the sport. Lastly, just threw this name out there, Frank Reich. He was an advisor / interim head coach with Stanford this past year. He went to Stanford. He was a longtime quarterback at the NFL level, and of course the offensive coordinator for the Eagles under Doug Peterson in 2017. Reich and Sirianni are extremely close. Sirianni has looked at Reich and called him an older brother. He's continued to rely on him when he's needed advice as the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. And all across this Eagles organization, Jeffrey Lurie, Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni, they love Reich. They have a deep appreciation for him. And I think if he were to come in here, he would be able to challenge Jalen Hurts because he has that type of gusto. But I don't know if I'd go Reich because he runs the same system that Sirianni does, and I'd love to see Philadelphia think a little bit more outside of the box. This is a very desirable job to be the Eagles offensive coordinator. It pays very well. Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman are arguably the best owner-GM combination in the sport. You can have full autonomy of this offense. They are still very highly skilled. Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert if he comes back, Saquon Barkley, an offensive line that was injured, might be regressing, but the talent is certainly there. And Philadelphia is willing to pay. Vic Fangio makes a bag, maybe more than some head coaches make across the league as a DC. And Philadelphia, they're in the Super Bowl window right now. They want to get this OC job right. They'll pay big-time dollars for a legitimate coordinator here. Don't forget to give me a follow on all my social media pages. You can find me on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Chase_Senior. I'm giving you additional content there. Just started that TikTok page. We're already over 6,100 followers. And this week I've started to put my Facebook page on here for some of the older folks. We're up to 16,000 followers there, reaching millions and millions of people every month on all these platforms. So show me some love and give me a follow over there.